What specifically has Judge Boasberg done that you believe is an impeachable offense under the constitutional description of high crimes and misdemeanors?
All I'm saying is if you're acting in a political fashion and not just, following the law, ruling on the law.
Now that President Biden is no longer in office, MAGA Republican Congressman Jim Jordan has a brand new target for impeachment and removal. A district judge who dared rule against Donald Trump on the deportation of Salvadorian migrants. And during a CNN interview, Jim Jordan was asked on what grounds he would impeach the judge, and you see him visibly die on screen. He's reduced to stammering and awkwardness over his lack of preparation for the most obvious question in the world. It's hilarious. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. I'm sorry, it's just too funny. When you see this, it's just like, bro, you should have been prepared for this question. Like, of all questions to expect when you're calling for the impeachment of a district judge over purely political reasons because you don't like that he ruled against your cult leader, this is the question to have a good answer for, and he doesn't. So we're going to play this clip and unpack it together. Brace yourselves. It's fairly long.
All right, welcome back to the arena. President Trump and the White House towing the line, stressing that they won't defy a court order while continuing to attack the judge overseeing the dispute over deportation flights, with, of course, President Trump calling for his impeachment. I'm joined now by the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, Republican Jim Jordan. Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for being here.
Good to be with you, Casey.
So just want to start with a simple question. Do you believe, as President Trump does, that Judge Boasberg should be impeached?
Well, normally, as Chief Justice Roberts has pointed out, the remedy for bad decisions is the appellate court. But it seems to me you may have something a little different here. This judge's decision was so ridiculous, it seems to be political. And then when you add to it the history of Judge Boasberg, his work with the FISA court, back in the whole Trump-Russia baloney, that whole, fake collusion thing that they talked about, the Democrats talked about forever. And then, of course, his sentencing of Kevin Kleinsmith, the guy who...
I should say, too, once they call Russiagate a hoax, it's bullshit. There were multiple credible ties between the Trump campaign and Russian state assets. There were multiple convictions as a consequence of the Mueller report. A Trump campaign official shared campaign data with Russian state assets. Donald Trump publicly asked the Kremlin to hack the DNC, and that's precisely what they did a day later. Russiagate was not a hoax, and anyone who tells you otherwise is a liar.
Lied to the FISA court, altered a document back during that same time frame. I think you might have here a judge who's acting in a political fashion. That is a different question. And so for us Republicans, and I think folks on the Judiciary Committee, all options are still on the table. We're going to do some research. We're going to dig into this, and we're going to find out. And then I think when you really step back, Casey, and look at how stupid the decision was by this judge. I mean, he basically said, he did say, turn the plane around, bring back gang members, hardened criminals who've done all kinds of bad things, who are here illegally, turn the plane around and bring those bad guys back to the country. I think just on its face, this is ridiculous. And so it sure looks like the judge is acting in a political fashion.
I completely understand the argument that people are making about whether the planes whether these people should have been deported or not. I want to get a little bit more clarity on what you're saying. What specifically has Judge Boasberg done that you believe is an impeachable offense under the constitutional description of high crimes and misdemeanors?
All I'm saying is if you're acting in a political fashion and not just, following the law, ruling on the law, and I would argue that, frankly, just his ruling in and of itself, remember, the Constitution is pretty clear. Article 2, Section 1, very first sentence says, power in the executive branch shall be vested in a president of the United States. The president has the authority here. Second, he followed the statute.
Isn't there a major body of law that...
So, again, just seeing it in real time, I'm just watching it. Well, I'm look over there, and then he runs off camera, citing the Constitution itself. Okay, what does that have to do with anything? Yes, the president is the head of the executive branch. He has to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, but that doesn't give him a blank check to do whatever the hell he wants. The president still, at least in theory, is supposed to operate within the confines of the law and not step his own authority. And it's been our understanding of judicial review for centuries that it's the judiciary branch which determines that scope. And so we're going to get into the CNN's host pushback here. But again, that was not a satisfying answer at all. A total non sequitur and sentence fragment to cover for his lack of preparation for a very obvious answer. The truth is, he has no evidence of a high crime, misdemeanor, treason, or bribery, which are the constitutional requirements to impeach and remove the President of the United States, a federal judge, an executive branch employee. I digress. We'll continue.
The executive branch shall be vested in a president of the United States. The president has the authority here. Second, he followed the statute.
Isn't there a major body of law that shows that he would probably be likely to win?
Predatory incursion, and that he followed the statute. And then third, the president told the country he was going to do this. It's not like it's a surprise to anyone, let alone this judge. He campaigned on it and said he was going to do it. So I think when you put all that together...
What the hell does that have to do with anything? Again, this is so stupid. This is one of their dumbest talking points. I'm sure there have to be talking points that are more constitutionally grounded than this, which is he said he was going to do it. What's your point? President Biden campaigned on student loan forgiveness, and you all rejected that, even though Biden won the election. He won it by 7 million votes, a substantially greater margin than by which Trump won this last election. He actually won the popular majority, not merely a popular plurality. You all fought it every step of the way. You resisted. If Biden had said, well, I campaigned on this and I won both the Electoral College and the popular vote, ergo I should be given a blank check to do it, you would say that doesn't matter at all. You're still obligated, even though you're president, to operate within the law. So this is a really dumb argument from a particularly stupid person, Jim Jordan, once again illustrating that Republicans have no sense of shame or decency or standards. It's all about specific outcomes. But we'll continue.
That's what makes this decision look so political on the part of Judge Boasberg.
But Mr. Chairman, and we actually showed how many times the president said exactly that he would use this law when he was on the campaign trail. We showed our viewers some of that yesterday. So I do take that point. But given all these arguments, if you think that this is, and there is an enormous body of law out there, some of it built during the Bush administration, which I know, you were here in Washington during a lot of this, that suggests that the president actually might win this case on the merits in the longer term under the normal process. So if you're the White House, why not put that appeal through? Why not use the process that's available to you right then?
Well, there in fact may be an appeal process. I know we got all kinds of cases. I think 15 different cases now where there have been some federal district judge who's done some kind of injunction, ruled against President Trump in just 8 weeks of him being in.
So funny. I just, again, why don't you do it the correct way if you're so sturdy, if your foundation in the law and in historic precedent is so strong? Just do it the regular way instead of casting aspersions towards impeachment, which won't go anywhere. We'll get into that in just a second. But it's because Jim Jordan is Jim Jordan, and he is the least productive Republican lawmaker, or at least was, given this freshman class of Republican losers. It's entirely possible that he's much more productive by comparison. But again, it's just tilting at windmills to throw red meat to the base because Republicans aren't interested in actually governing, right? But there have been efforts to impeach federal judges, okay? So House Republicans are targeting a growing cohort of federal judges with impeachment for issuing rulings unfavorable to the Trump administration. It's a stark break with tradition, as judges until now have been impeached mainly for gross personal misconduct, financial corruption, or other serious offenses. Trump has fueled the effort by advocating judicial impeachments, though some GOP lawmakers have expressed pause. U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts also pushed back Tuesday, saying in a rare statement, quote, "For more than 2 centuries, it's been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreements concerning a judicial decision. Quote, the normal appellate review process exists for that purpose." House Republicans have introduced or threatened articles of impeachment against more than a half dozen federal district court judges who ruled against Trump. House Republican leaders have not ruled out holding impeachment votes, but with a 2-seat majority and some Republicans uncomfortable with the idea, it could be a heavy lift. To actually remove any of these judges, all Senate Republicans and at least 14 Democrats would have to vote to convict them, likely an impossible threshold. And this is the first one, James Boasberg, the judge that Jim Jordan was talking about in that interview. Boasberg incurred Trump's wrath by ordering a plane deporting roughly 250 alleged Venezuelan gang members to turn around as he adjudicated the administration's use of the Alien Enemies Act of 1789. Trump said Tuesday in a post on Truth Social, "This judge, like many of the crooked judges I'm forced to appeal before, should be impeached." Representative Brendan Gill, one of those freshman Republican losers I mentioned, quickly introduced articles of impeachment the same day, accusing Boasberg of abuse of power, backed by 5 Republican co-sponsors. Others are Paul Engelmeyer, who issued a ruling last month blocking Doge from accessing Department of Treasury records. Eric Van Orden and Eli Crane introduced articles of impeachment against him, and Crane's measure has 7 GOP co-sponsors. John Bates, who ordered the Trump administration to restore health agency websites that were shut down by an executive order. Representative Andy Ogles introduced articles of impeachment against Bates last month, homing in on socially divisive and destructive LGBTQI content on the sites. Ogles accused Bates of, quote, conduct so utterly lacking in an intellectual honesty and basic integrity that he is guilty of high crimes and misdemeanors. So stupid. Amir Ali, District of Columbia, he ruled that Trump lacks unbounded power to curtail foreign aid that's been appropriated by Congress, ordering the administration to restart frozen aid payments. Ogles, again, introduced articles of impeachment against him, calling his ruling, quote, arbitrary and capricious, and as with Bates, accusing him of, quote, lacking in intellectual honesty and basic integrity. John J. McConnell Jr., who also blocked an order, from the Office of Management and Budget, temporarily freezing all federal grant, loan, and financial assistance. Representative Andrew Clyde said last month he plans to introduce articles of impeachment against him, and my God, so on and so forth. So it's stunning. Now, some Senate Republicans, like Lindsey Graham, for example, and I think John Cornyn of Texas, told the New York Times in interviews that they don't intend to support impeachments should it make it from the House to the Senate. And again, you'd need a supermajority, 67 senators to pull it off. But yeah, this is where we are. Which is that instead of impeaching people for treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors, you want to impeach judges for ruling against your cult leader. Again, it's a waste of time and political capital, and it's particularly unpopular with the voting public. So it would just be Republicans damaging themselves. But it's not the first time that they would have done something politically damaging to satisfy the capricious instincts of their cult leader, Donald Trump, who, if he follows the 22nd Amendment, isn't subject to re-election anyway. So in theory, he has nothing to worry about. These people do, on the other hand. That's where we are. Really embarrassing stuff from Jim Jordan, predictably stupid. And in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.